guys, I hope you are doing well. I'm so excited to be shooting this podcast today. Today with me, I have the Rose Athiga. Welcome very much, Rose.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you very much for making time to come.
Absolutely.
I feel like I've known you forever. And congratulations for Top 40 Under 40.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So guys, today we'll be talking about transitioning back into the job market after a stint abroad. I've had quite a number of clients who are transitioning back from, different parts of the world, and sometimes I feel they face challenges, be it that they're coming from one particular environment and coming to a different work environment, struggling with imposter syndrome, struggling with just the various challenges, because maybe you came back for one reason or the other. Maybe like your funds are not enough, so you had to come back, or because of family or because of health reasons. And when you come back to Kenya, you might feel that you are not enough. You might feel that people are expecting so much of you, and you're not able to deliver, and just all those internal struggles. And I think Rose would be the perfect person to have this conversation with.
Yeah.
You actually transitioned back.
Yes.
So to start off this conversation, first tell us who you are and
Sure.
what you do.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks so much, Joanne, for having me on the show. I'm a big fan of yours, so it's such an honor to be here. So I'm Rose Thiga. I am an exec at a startup called Pego. And I also run a podcast called Shaping Africa, where I'm exploring this whole topic of people coming back from the diaspora. I'm a mother, and yeah, I also have a couple of mentees. I love pouring into people, so I also have a couple of mentees who are early in their career, who I help kind of rethink how they approach their early career.
Right.
Yeah. And personally, I came back 7 years ago after being away for 13 years. So I left pretty young, right after high school. Basically 6 months after high school, and I went to undergrad in the US, worked for a bit, went and got my MBA, and then came back home basically 3 years after my MBA, and I've been back home 7 years.
All right.
Yeah.
So, between undergrad and MBA, it was immediately?
Yes.
You just did them back to back?
No, I worked for 3 years.
Oh,
yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how was it like trying to get back? Was it a decision that you made before?
Sure. So those with partners, getting alignment with my husband took quite a bit of time. So I had always wanted to come back, but it was more asking ourselves, what's the right timing?
Yeah.
So we oscillated quite a bit between the two of us. So my husband was ready to come right after undergrad. We met in college. And I wasn't. And then I was ready to come back right after my MBA, and he wasn't. So we took quite a few years kind of going back and forth. But then we looked holistically at, wanting to start a family, the kind of work we were doing. Were we really having impact? Were we fulfilled? We had kind of ticked all the boxes. All of us had master's degrees. We had a house. We had a nice car. But we still felt a little bit empty and wanted to do meaningful work and be back home. Yeah. And for us, it's interesting because both our families are still in the US actually. So it was interesting to get to that crossroads where you're like, okay, I've done everything that I quote unquote came here to do, and I'm still feeling unfulfilled. And oh, by the way, we want to start a family. Like having a family abroad is quite hectic because of the childcare. So we decided to take the chance and move back. So it was intentional, but took a while to to figure out.
Okay. And how has that been like?
Yeah, being back is like you were saying. So maybe I can kind of just tell the story. So when I came back, I didn't join corporate, I don't know. I had worked at Deloitte and PwC and such, so I didn't join any of those. I joined a very entrepreneurial role in a family-owned business, not my family, so another very wealthy family. And it had its own challenges.
Sorry, let me take you back a little bit.
Sure.
So how did you get that job?
Oh, how did I get the job? This is actually critically important. So I think I moved back in 2014.
All right.
And between 2010 and 2014, I think I came home like 5 or 6 times. Right. Yeah. So I made sure I was here every December. And when I was here, I reached out to people either through my MBA school network. So I would just look at people on LinkedIn, I see we went to the same school. Can I meet you for coffee? Yeah. Or friends, I'd be like, oh, you're working here. Can you introduce me? Mentors that I had met in the US that had transitioned back.
Yeah.
And I just spent a lot of time kind of networking and trying to figure out what opportunities were on the ground. And so how I got this job is through a Wharton alumni. So he, the person that hired me is the chair of the company. And I had met him in the US at a conference, and I kind of kept in touch. So when I was ready to move, he's one of the first people that I wrote. I kind of sent a blast to everyone. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, hi, remember me? We met, I'm looking to transition back, and this is my timeline. I'll be in town. I used to do that all the time. Like, I'll be in town these dates. I'd love to come and see you. And so that's how I kind of started to suss out what opportunities were available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about this role now.
Yeah. So I show up, and when you're in the US, I mean, like you're earning a good pay, and you're kind of, I was like mid-manager-ish level, right, in a consulting firm. So you're still like way down the hierarchy, right? Yeah. So I show up and have a corner office on my first day, and I'm like,
wow,
wait, what? I remember sending it to my friends on our WhatsApp group, and they're like, whoa. And I was like, yeah, this happened. So there were some good things, because I felt like I landed in an exco like kind of straight away, and had a ton of responsibility, which really pushed me in terms of like growing myself and stepping more into leadership. But there were some challenges too. I always describe that experience as, I came in thinking that the company was a speedboat, but it was the Titanic, honey. Yeah, it was the Titanic. And my husband actually is the one who kind of said that to me, and he was like, it's gonna take time for things to change. Because my whole remit was to try and institutionalize, like move them from being family-owned business and have it like institutionalized, corporatized. So there was a lot of resistance to change. But I keep saying, I really made my bones, and like it allowed me to also have more networks, because at one point there was a gap in marketing, and I was like, oh, can I run marketing? It just like really opened up my mind, and made me understand the Kenyan consumer so much better, and allowed me to have networks in banks, and like it just really opened my perspective about Kenya, despite the challenges.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And this was in 2014. So you came back and immediately, landed this job.
So I landed the job early in 2014.
Okay.
Right. So when my husband and I were planning, we said, as long as one of us gets a job, we're gonna move. Right. So I came home, I think it was the Easter or sometime earlier in 2014, and I had actually scheduled interviews. Yeah. So I had like back-to-back interviews, I think I went to Britam, NIC, and I picked the one that gave me the highest offer, which is like, I'm not so sure that was the right decision looking back, right? So then by the time I was going back, I knew I had a job, and it was more around executing on the plan to come back.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an interesting journey. Yeah. So let's talk about, some challenges that people feel when they are thinking about relocating, or they relocate not because they wanted to, but circumstances have forced them.
Sure.
What are some of the things that you feel, you want to share to someone, watching or listening, and they're thinking of coming back?
Yeah.
Especially, in terms of transitioning back into the Kenyan job market, because I think it's different from other, from other countries.
Yeah.
What tips would you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for people who are coming back at their own will, there's so many tips. Number one is invest time in networking, right? Obviously, like with COVID, I think back then it was like, ooh, someone's reaching out on LinkedIn. It was a bit out there. Yeah. But now with COVID, everyone is used to kind of interacting digitally, set up Zooms.
Exactly.
Yeah, just connect, and you'd be surprised. This market is actually not that big in terms of the decision makers. So if you're just intentional about, and I would end each meeting with, okay, so now you know what I'm looking for. Who else do you think I should talk to? And it just keeps the ball going until you have a good sense. And in those meetings, it's like understanding the landscape, you know, like how the outlook, you know, what sectors are doing well, like a little bit of big picture. So network.
Yes, and I actually love that you say network as the first thing, because I think we tend to underestimate, because there's this line in Kenya, like for you to get a job, lazima ujue mtu. And what we are saying is, you want to network with other professionals. It doesn't mean it doesn't have to be people that you already know.
Exactly.
You reach out to them on LinkedIn, connect to them, say, hi, my name is Rose. This is what I've done. For someone to give you a job, they don't. It's not a must. They know you personally, or they don't have to be your uncle or your auntie.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think from when the pandemic started, so many people have been hired on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I think we just tend to undervalue
totally
its importance and usefulness. And I'm grateful that you mentioned networking. So what else? Which other tips?
I would say, looking at your transferable skills, right? So the thing about the US is it's very specialized. Actually, I was talking to one of my podcast guests last weekend about this, is the level, like in your role is super well defined.
Yes.
And then there's an expert for everything else that surrounds your role that you need support for.
Exactly.
So it's like specialized. Which, when you're transitioning, you need to be prepared for kind of becoming a generalist, because the structures here are not that, like, you're not going to be boxed into, for example, in certain sectors like insurance, like there's someone who is doing every single part of that chain. And here it's like you own different parts of the chain. So think about the skill set that you've learned a little broader, not necessarily like the functional part that you're doing, but like broadly around like people management, project management, leadership at that level, right? Because I think if you get caught up in like I'm an insurance person,
this particular
role,
you're
going to struggle. So I like to tell people to think about their transferable skills broadly, not just in the sector. Because I remember when I was in corporate, so the company I used to work for, a department like HR, it's really, really specialized. So there's recruitment, there's comp and ben, there's even offboarding, there's onboarding. So you see, if you leave that organization and you are an onboarding specialist, you see what are the chances that you get another onboarding job. Absolutely.
They're not readily available.
And that's actually a really good example.
That then, you're thinking about, and I think we're talking about this, which brings us to our next point, how you package yourself is really important. Because then maybe you are abroad and you are probably managing apartments. Coming back to Kenya, probably those roles, if they're there, they're few, but then there's so much that you can do with just that, that you are managing properties abroad. How can you package yourself well? Do you mind sharing about, like, the documents, your CV, your LinkedIn profile, your cover letter, and how you package yourself?
Actually, one of the reasons I was like, I can't believe Joanne is doing this, was like, it was a bit of a struggle, to be honest, because I remember people telling me, I don't know, put your picture, your date of birth. I'm like, no. So it was like, how do I translate this CV or resume, which is what it is in the US, to a CV?
Yes. That is suitable for the Kenyan market.
That is suitable for the Kenyan market. And I don't know, I think I must have Googled stuff, but like, I remember it being a bit of a, like, like, how do I make this a very American resume from like an American business school? How do I make it a CV suitable to the Kenyan market. So I think I must have Googled stuff or like just made stuff up. I'm not so sure. But the school I went to had a career management office, and I remember reaching out to like the person in charge of international recruitment and be like, does this seem okay to you? She's like, yeah. Yeah, but it was definitely a struggle. Yeah.
And when you are attending interviews,
Yes.
how was that like? Because I know there's an appetite, with hiring managers and with recruiters, for people who are transitioning back. And actually, this should be a word of encouragement to anyone thinking of transitioning back. There's an appetite. So how was the interviewing process like?
Yeah, so like I said, I came a couple months before we actually moved back, and I was, to your point, I was able to schedule 3 interviews in a very short 2-week span, and I think it was because of that appetite and me reaching out before and saying, hey, I want to explore roles along these lines, and, do you guys have anything? And if they said yes, then I'd say, I'm in Kenya these 2 weeks, can we schedule an interview? So I think, to your point, there is a real appetite for people from diaspora. I think probably because of the training that you get, and I guess the perspective, like being able to kind of bridge both sides, depending on the type of role. Like for me now at a startup, I definitely see, being able to talk to global investors, global clients, like my experience from diaspora is still paying fruits. But the interviews were interesting. Like in the US, it's like very scripted. Here, you can go anywhere.
Are you married? Do you have children? How old? And you're like,
I think we've crossed a line here.
I can imagine. And did you so in terms of pay, because I know that is the other pain point, that most people would have to take a pay cut. How do you navigate that salary expectation question? Because I know there are people who now have missed opportunities, because then you asked, what is your salary expectation, and it's like double, and you actually miss out on a very good opportunity, and there's a way you'd have maneuvered
totally
that question.
I think, look, I'm not gonna try and play down the financial considerations, but I think what I want to do is set expectations generally that pay is not going to be the same. So don't look at this journey of moving back.
I hope they're listening.
Don't look at this journey of moving back as my first priority is pay parity. And I think I pointed to the fact that I think when I got my offer, I picked the one that paid the highest. And I'm not so sure that was the right decision. Maybe I could have taken a pay cut, but in 3 years I'd have been back. Because I kind of cut short conversations with a bank. And in hindsight, it's like you could have sacrificed for a certain period of time. But I look at the bonus structures of those banks and I'm like, I could have just hung in there, proved myself, and I would have already been back to my New York salary.
But I think I understand how you might have gone with the mind, because you had a family.
That's the thing. So
I actually totally understand. At that particular point.
Right. And only one of us had a job at the time, so we were like, just pick the highest. But I think it's important to plan financially around this and have like a really good buffer of savings as a family. But to have your decision as to what company to join to be anchored more in the learning opportunities, and how much it's aligned to actually what you want to do in your career, and what impact you want to have and what legacy you want to have. I think with the benefit of hindsight, I wasn't like super clear. I kind of had like broad themes around, working with local businesses, helping them institutionalize, corporatize, grow. But I think it's worth spending quite a bit of time figuring out like what impact you want to have when you come back, and then having whatever role you decide, fits into that. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I think that is a challenge that I see every day with my clients, that you don't want to think about what are my strengths, my skills, and my passions. What work do I consider meaningful? What problems do I want to solve? The question that most people would ask themselves is, which job pays the most? Which degree should I do that is going to pay me more? As opposed to asking yourself, what am I good at? What can I do better than anyone else with the least amount of effort? And now, which jobs are available that are in line with my strengths, my skills, and my passions?
Absolutely.
Then that way, it doesn't matter even if the pay is not so good, because you can always grow. Because then I feel money will always follow passion.
Absolutely.
The money is going to come.
It will.
You just need to hang in there for a bit, because then when we say we are passionate about something, passion actually means suffering. So what are you willing to suffer for? What kind of work, even if no one was paying you, you do. So if someone can ask themselves that, then even if you're coming back and you're given a role, even if it's in a Muindi company,
exactly,
if it's in line with your strengths, your skills, and your passions, if it's in line with your future, career map, then you can sacrifice
totally,
because you are passionate about it, and then now with time you can grow into doing what you want to do. And I think, as you rightfully put it, if you've saved and you have a buffer, then you're able to even take the pay cut comfortably. Also, I normally feel the other thing that someone might consider doing is a side business.
Yes.
So that
to show up the monies.
Exactly, because then maybe as you're coming back, you could come with, baby clothes, if you're maybe coming from the UK, and you could actually start selling the clothes while you're there, right? Because then having this emergency fund and just doing something that can give you some money is going to give you some comfort.
True.
As you're looking for a job, because then it's not do or die.
True.
Yeah. So it helps you navigate and settle.
Yes.
I don't know which other tips you don't want to give.
Yeah, I'd say be ready to evolve. I don't know if I mentioned that. Yeah, we talked about and evolve in terms of many areas. So friendships, family, you come back and you find your friends have moved on, you have to make new ones. And especially in your career, I think you have to force yourself to constantly, ask yourself, what am I really doing, and what is it that I want to accomplish? Like you were saying, constantly sharpening your thinking around your strengths, your skills, and your passions, because those will evolve and change as you're in a new environment, right? You're gonna have fresh perspectives. So be ready to evolve, and be ready to learn new skills. Don't come thinking that this is my JD and it's cut and dry. Be open to new possibilities. Some things will show up unexpectedly. Feel free to raise your hand. I always encourage people to put themselves out there to learn as much as they can. And to approach a career here a little bit with a sense of curiosity. Because it's not as cut and dry. I used to say in America, I can tell you next December, this is what you're going to be doing. It's so planned. But here it's magic. I always say, what is today's surprise? So have a little bit of wonder and curiosity for the world, I think.
Otherwise, I think you might get ulcers.
Yes.
I'm used to working in a certain kind of way. People keep time. If the train leaves at 3:18, but then you come here and it's a high level meeting and guys are coming in 15 minutes, but then you can just totally lose your mind. But I like that you're talking about adaptability, because in 2021, it's one of the skills that hiring managers and recruiters were looking for in top leadership in employees, because of COVID. When COVID happened, people had to learn how to pivot differently. That you are adaptable. If you are able to quickly adapt to situations, then I think your transition becomes easier. Totally. Because you're going to come back and then the environments are totally different. Totally. I think in Kenya, like sexual harassment or things like the laws are not enforced very well,
right,
as opposed to like the states. So you can really like struggle.
Totally.
So that you are able to adapt well, I think would go a really long
Yeah.
way. Not to say that if you're sexually harassed, you need to keep quiet, but
True.
then
Don't write that email to HR. I've done that a few times.
Yeah, like 57 times if you
Yeah.
have to. But then how, like let me just say the culture and the environment here is totally different.
Very, very different.
It's totally different.
And actually, and I think that's one thing people who are coming back from diaspora can infuse and make change, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things I found was like my direct reports would not talk to me, and I was like,
And it's respect.
I
And
know,
you're being
I know
humble.
it's respect, but I'm like, I need your perspectives,
Yeah,
people,
and input.
so it was just a beautiful journey to get people out of their shell in a way. So things are very different, but stay true to yourself and yes, be adaptable. And try and make the change, try and make positive change, because I think it, and this is also what I tell my mentees, is like, it's always better when you have a perspective, no matter how young you are in the organization. Like, let's work on helping you find your voice. So I think that's one thing like that is expected in the diaspora, right? So I remember like first year out of undergrad, and it's the lowest person on the totem pole who kicks off the call, announces everyone, says this is the agenda, and just kind of embedding some of those working practices in the places that I've been.
Yeah.
I think has helped and has had an impact. So there's also a lot of positivity that you bring. We always remember, like for people who are transitioning back, there's a lot of positivity that you bring.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we actually need the talent.
Exactly.
We want the expertise.
Exactly.
We want everything that they have.
Correct.
Yeah. And for someone who is watching or listening and they are thinking about transitioning back, but they struggling with imposter syndrome. Let's talk about that, because people are transitioning back for different and various reasons. And like the one that I feel most people struggle with is that they don't want to be seen as failures. What word of encouragement can you give them?
Yeah, I would say this is a tough one, honestly, especially for people who haven't necessarily come back on their own terms or don't feel like they fulfilled what they went to do. And weirdly, I think even the most successful people feel this imposter syndrome thing. And I would say that I think the first step is just forgiving yourself and coming to terms with your circumstances, especially for people who come back not out of their will. I think starting with acceptance, like, okay, this is where I'm at. And then gratitude is like, okay, but this is the experience I had and this is the exposure I had. And being clear about, okay, now how can I make something out of that? I think it's difficult, but with time and being clear about what you drew from that experience and how it's relatable here, I think you can make something super beautiful out of your experience.
I agree. You can make lemonade with like the
yes.
And that's why we are here today, to encourage you.
Totally.
If you are feeling like that. And let's talk about the jobs available, because I think people normally struggle because they think Santa kuja alafu nifanye nini. And the appetite for people transitioning back is so high. So what jobs are readily available for someone who is looking to transition back?
So I think right now in Kenya, tech is obviously a hot topic.
Yes.
Financial services, whether it be banking or insurance, has always been a hot topic. For me, actually, this is a community I feel really called to serve. So I'm hoping that one fine day I can have, like, spaces online for networking and posting jobs so that there's a lot more visibility.
Yeah.
Conferences where companies come and kind of try and recruit people from diaspora, and people from diaspora come. So this is something I'm also thinking about in terms of how do we get talent out of the diaspora to kind of come back and catapult us.
Exactly.
Because I think there's a lot of benefit there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're also talking about sales.
Oh yeah, and sales.
Yeah.
Yes.
Admin also.
Right.
Because then if you're coming from the States and because as we are saying, the environment is very different.
Yeah.
Things are done meticulously.
Yeah. Very strong organizational skills.
Exactly.
Correct.
Most people here lack it. So if you're coming with that, then I mean, there's a lot of appetite if you have like those kinds of skills. And also in the education sector.
Yeah.
If you studied masters, if you did PhD.
Correct.
I think there are so many universities, like looking for that talent as well. Totally. And just to mention some recruitment firms, if you're transitioning back that you want to send your CV. So my first and favorite is usually Summit Recruitment and Search. You can check Corporate Staffing, you can check Glassdoor, you can check Brighter Monday, LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is usually underrated. There's so many jobs normally available there. The other thing I love to do is you want to go to the websites of the particular organization that you want to work for. So like for example, you go to the IBM website, go to the career portal, see if there are any available jobs. Because again, if you're looking to transition back in 2024 even, you want to start now.
Yeah, absolutely, Joanne. Yeah, actually that's another thing I should have mentioned. You're lucky if you find something in a year, right? So that's the other thing I'd encourage people to do is to think about like when do you want to transition and start planning early. Yeah, because sometimes it will take you 3 to 4 years to actually get a role that you're like, this is the one. Right? Because like we were saying, the opportunities are like could be few and far between that actually have a strong match to your profile. And
the other thing I was thinking about, when I was thinking about like transitioning back, sometimes the opportunities are not readily available. Yes, you have the skills, but then these positions are not readily available. I don't know what you think about just like volunteering or say, like maybe I want to work for UAP, for example, and you've already identified a problem that they have. They just probably at the moment don't have that capacity. That you can try, even if it's pro bono, then you form a relationship with them.
Totally. That's a really good idea.
As and when something opens up, I mean, surely you'll be the first person in their mind.
Totally.
That then we are looking for other ways of looking for jobs as opposed to just sending us in.
Exactly.
And just, like doing what we've always done. If there's something else that you can do, then you want to jump on it.
Yeah, I would say adding value is like one way people always have you top of mind. So I highly encourage that, and especially if you can kind of take time off, come for 6 months. Like in the diaspora, I think companies are a lot more like, I can't believe it. I think PwC now is like work when you want. I don't know. Yeah. So there's ways you can structure like a sabbatical or something, and do that kind of work, so that you start to make connections.
Connections are everything. So as a parting shot, what would you want to tell the guys listening and watching?
Yeah, so if you're looking to transition back, first of all, that's a good thing. Don't be scared. Be intentional about your planning. Start now, like Joanne said. Start thinking about your strengths, your skills, your passions, and how do those look at companies that kind of fall within your areas of interest. Reach out to people on LinkedIn. Network, and be ready to evolve and adapt. Yeah.
All right, guys. I hope this session has been beneficial. Rose, again, thank you very much. I think you sharing that you have actually done it, I know is going to encourage someone. So thank you very much for making time to come, and thank you for the wise nuggets. That's all that we had for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.